Chapter 111, Guide Tamer and Patenter. 2. Run. Julius interrupted again. We've established that I can detect your lies. Why don't you tell me the truth? There was another moment of tense silence before Ren finally sighed. There was a mana vein, he admitted. A special one, that I wanted to use for my cultivation. And that's when you found the hydra? Ren nodded slowly. Show me. What? The prince opened his robe, revealing dozens of small vials secured inside. Medicine for mana poisoning. Enough to keep you safe even at that depth. Ren's mushrooms pulsed while considering his situation. Well, the prince arched an eyebrow. Will you show me the way? Or would you prefer we continue this game of half-truths? Ren looked at the medicine vials, then at the prince, and finally toward the depths he knew so well. The vein is relatively easy to find, he began slowly. Perfect. Julius took out a vial and offered it to Ren. Guide me. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed restlessly while he guided the prince through the tunnels. His mind kept circling back to the mantis core he had left dangling and accumulating mana. It shouldn't be an egg yet, he thought as they descended. According to the knowledge, mana levels indicate it still needs almost 20,000 points to complete the process. But the prince was the problem. How would he explain that? The mushrooms detected a subtle change in mana patterns. Everything all right? The prince noticed his hesitation. Yes, your highness, Ren responded automatically, just verifying the safest path. Although maybe his mushrooms pulsed while considering the possibilities. It wasn't such a bad situation. If he could use the prince and his potions to collect the core already, then the mana points saved in medicine and preparations could be injected into the core to finish the process and... The prince observed him with interest while they navigated another tunnel crossing. Ren could feel the weight of his evaluating gaze. The core should still be safe. With no monsters having hatching behavior at this depth, the core should maintain its nature. But since that hydra had made it up here, maybe it wasn't a bad idea to collect a bit earlier if possible. Suddenly, the mushrooms pulsed with alarm. Ren stopped dead. What's wrong? Julius asked, his hand transforming into claws instantly. A deep assassin, Ren whispered, moving through the side tunnel. If we wait a moment, it will pass without... The prince stepped forward, an enigmatic smile on his lips. No need to wait. A golden light emanated from his body while he manifested his beast. The creature that materialized was something Ren had only seen in books. A sleek and elegant body covered in scales that shone like polished jade. Its horn, long and spiral, emitted an aura of pure power that made Ren's mushrooms reduce their glow. A Qilin, the sacred beast's aura expanded through the tunnel. Ren felt how the assassin, a creature that normally feared nothing at this depth, retreated in panic. Its presence quickly vanished in the distance, fleeing from the power that had just manifested. Assassins are cowardly creatures, the prince commented casually while his Qilin remained manifested, its light illuminating the tunnel with a glow greater than Ren's mushrooms. So sure of their position in the food chain until they find something truly superior. Ren couldn't take his eyes off the sacred beast. The mushrooms try and process the unique mana patterns emanating from the Qilin, but most information concerning a gold beast was beyond their knowledge. Perhaps the assassin wasn't cowardly. Maybe it was intelligent. Ren stopped, searching for the right words. First time seeing one? Julius smiled at his amazement. Not surprising. Qilin are the symbol of royalty. The mana patterns around the Qilin were different from anything Ren had seen before. Let's continue, the prince indicated, his Qilin illuminating the way with its golden radiance. I suspect we won't have any more interruptions. Beasts tend to avoid me. Ren nodded, his mind divided between awe at the beast and concern for his core. At least now, they would have a clear path to the vein, though that meant he wouldn't have excuses to delay the inevitable. I just hope, he thought as they resumed their descent, the prince is more interested in the mana vein flow than in any unusual core we might find. What do you know about crowned lizards from the western desert? Julius asked as they advanced, his Qilin still illuminating the way. Oh, they're fascinating. Ren's mushrooms pulse giving him the knowledge enthusiastically. They have a unique life cycle. They run in circles that they use to create hot air currents. The currents trap insects that... The prince observed how the boy described with micrometric precision the habits of a beast he had probably never seen. It was the kind of knowledge you'd only find in specialized texts. He asked more about iron, bronze, and silver beasts and the celestial spirit flames of the eastern islands. Lou told me he read a book recently that says they glow with their own light and can levitate using mana currents, although Ren hesitated for some reason. They actually don't use currents. They project themselves wherever the mana is because they're pure energy. Interesting, thought Julius. Extensive knowledge, but with some weird confusions. The prince had thought Ren was wrong, when in reality the book Lou had read was the one that was wrong, and the boy's correction was the truth. The prince, of course, believed the version from the book he had also read. Zhao had mentioned something similar. How during the expedition, Ren seemed to know too much about some things, but added small outlandish things to the general knowledge. What about phoenixes? Ren seemed to shrink slightly. I only know the basics. Gold rank or higher beasts, very powerful, use fire and platinum wyverns. Sorry, Your Highness. I know even less about those. Julius frowned. The contrast was marked. Encyclopedic knowledge of common and rare beasts of silver rank and below, but almost nothing about the more powerful gold ones and above. As if someone had poured hundreds of books of lower rank creatures into his head, thought the prince. But that doesn't make sense. Records showed Ren came from a modest family. Limited wealth wouldn't allow the kind of library needed to accumulate such knowledge, and although the academy had an impressive library, the boy hadn't been there even half a year. Was he really some kind of genius, or... Chapter 112, Guide Tamer and Patenter, 3. As if someone had poured hundreds of books into his head, thought the prince. But that doesn't make sense. Records showed that Ren came from a modest family. Limited wealth wouldn't allow the kind of library needed to accumulate such knowledge, and although the academy had an impressive library, the boy hadn't been there even half a year. Was he really some kind of genius, or... Tell me about your spore, Julius said casually. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed with nervousness. It was the question he had been dreading since this journey began. But then, something changed in his expression. You know, what, Your Highness? It's not fair, Ren stopped, turning toward the prince. You ask all the questions. How about I ask something, too? Julius blinked, surprised by the sudden change in attitude, then smiled, amused by the boldness. About my beast, I suppose? Exactly. Ren's mushrooms pulsed with genuine enthusiasm. What's it like having a Qilin? And what's your other beast? The prince laughed softly. The boy was skilled at diverting attention, but perhaps if he played along it would make him relax. The Qilin is the beast of royalty, as I already told you, he began, watching Ren's reaction. My father is the only one who has a platinum rank one. An impressive sight, truly. And your siblings? None have managed to take it beyond Gold 3. Julia sighed. I myself stalled at Gold 2. The cultivation failed after that, and my Qilin matured. Ren's mushrooms pulsed with curiosity. Why? There's something different in my father's method. The prince shrugged. Some detail we haven't been able to replicate. He insists it's simple, but sometimes the simplest things are the hardest to see, Ren commented, surprising Julius with the depth of the observation. True. As for my other beast, continued the prince, it's a rank Gold 1 elemental wolverine. The ones that can adapt to different elements? Exactly. It's popular among nobility, too. I have it attuned to the earth element, though changing its neutral element in juvenile stage isn't difficult. Most of my sisters prefer water. My brother's fire. He stopped, a nostalgic smile on his lips. A shame both beasts are already mature. The decisions we make when young follow us all our life. Ren's mushrooms pulse more intensely. How? How do you manage to have two beasts? Julius smiled enigmatically. Sorry, but that's a royal family secret. If I told you, I'd have to kill you. Ren froze for a moment, until he noticed a gleam of amusement in the prince's eyes. Just kidding. Julius laughed at Ren's expression. The method for obtaining two beasts isn't really a deadly secret. It's just impractical to replicate on a large scale. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed with curiosity, while they continued advancing. Unlike Yino, we don't have easy methods to cultivate double tamers, the prince continued, his expression becoming more serious. According to our recent visitor, they've found a way to make the process quite replicable. They're even experimenting with 3 beasts. And is it true? Seems so, but they have their own limitations. Julius nodded. Their abyssal beasts seem to have the limit at Silver 3, no matter how many they accumulate, if that's the limit in their individual power. Rin processed this information, while his mushrooms analyzed the tunnel ahead. The mana pressure was gradually increasing, making it a bit difficult to advance, but he could still endure about 14 minutes more, without major problems. Wouldn't it be better then, he began without thinking too much, to share the method with Yano's people? If Yano can give 2 or 3 beasts to their tamers, keeping the method secret seems like a disadvantage for the kingdom. Julius stopped, observing Run with renewed interest. It's more complicated than that, he finally responded. The method has implications that could affect the kingdom's economy and would be problematic for people to know for various reasons. Ren's mushrooms pulsed while pointing to another tunnel. This one showed signs of recent destruction, though local beasts had begun rebuilding it. The worms and beetles have been working, Ren commented as they passed. They use their secretions to reinforce damaged tunnels. It's fascinating how they incorporate crystal fragments into... How do you know so much about the depths? Julius interrupted. Not just the tunnels and beasts, but their behaviors, their habits. There are many books in the academy, Ren responded automatically. You read that much? In the library of the... You haven't been at the academy that long. The prince cut him off softly. And your family... Besides, I feel it's half-lies. He stopped. Something in Ren's expression had changed. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed with a different rhythm while the tunnel opened into a wider cavern. The air here smelled different, like death. So this is where... Ren whispered. Julius's Qilin illuminated the cavern with its radiance, revealing a scene of major destruction. The walls showed marks of battle, and in the center, the hydra. The prince approached the corpse, or what's left of it. The beast's massive body had been practically consumed completely, only the hard parts of its armor remaining. Purple crystals sprouted from some of its wounds, creating a grotesque statue that glowed faintly under the Qilin's light. The attacker's abyssal energy, I suppose, Ren murmured, his mushrooms pulsing while failing to analyze the patterns. The crystals around, the mana, even the way beasts rebuild the tunnels is strange here. As they skirted the Hydra's corpse, Ren grew bold enough to ask, Your Highness... Ren stopped beside the Hydra's crystallized corpse. Could I collect some parts of the armor? Julius blinked, as if the idea hadn't occurred to him. The armor? The diamond scales, Ren explained while his mushrooms analyzed the most valuable sections. In the market, even a single Hydra scale can be worth. The prince had probably never needed to worry about the market value of anything, so he hadn't thought about it. Of course, Julius smiled, understanding the situation. Take what you can carry. Just avoid the parts affected by abyssal energy. Ren's mushrooms pulsed while identifying the best pieces. Some scales here, a tendon fragment there, each piece worth a small fortune. As for the rest, the prince manifested his second beast. The wolverine that emerged was massive. Its fur had an earthy tone, and its body seemed to partially merge with the ground beneath its paws. Crystals and minerals sprouted from its skin like natural armor. Watch. Julius commanded his beast. Chapter 113, Guide Tamer and Pander. 4. As for the rest, the prince manifested his second beast. The wolverine that emerged was massive. Its fur had an earthy tone, and its body seemed to partially merge with the ground beneath its paws. Crystals and minerals sprouted from its skin like natural armor, each one catching and reflecting the Qilin's light. Watch. Julius commanded his beast. The wolverine approached the Hydra's corpse and, to Ren's surprise, began to devour it systematically. But something was weird. The pieces it swallowed seemed to disappear into some kind of internal space. It has a special cavity, the prince explained upon seeing Ren's expression. It can store objects without digesting them. Quite useful for transporting things or eliminating evidence. Ren's mushrooms pulsed with fascination, while observing the wolverine methodically consume the Hydra's remains. When it finished, the beast simply vanished, returning to Julius's body. Are the remains inside you now? Rin couldn't help but ask. In a way, Julius smiled. Though I prefer not to think too much about the details. Do you have everything you need? Rin nodded, carefully securing his bounty. A beast that can store objects, he thought as they advanced, would be really convenient. His mushrooms pulsed, reminding him there were more immediate things to worry about. Now, the prince resumed their path. Since I've answered your questions, how about you tell me more about that spore of yours? Well, Rin began but stopped abruptly. His mushrooms pulsed with a different rhythm. What's wrong? We're close, Rin pointed ahead. The vein is just past that bridge turn. Julius noticed the topic change, but decided not to press. For now, the boy was more skilled than he appeared at handling difficult conversations. Before Julius could ask more, his mushrooms pulsed with intensity. It's here! He pointed to the large chamber as they exited the tunnel. The vein revealed itself as a crystal bowl that glowed with pure energy. The mana pressure was considerable. For someone with a common spore, it should be almost unbearable to approach the flow. Rin knew he still had about 10 minutes before really needing the medicine, but his mushrooms pulsed erratically while he pretended to stagger slightly. The mana, he murmured, taking out the vial the prince had given him. At this depth, Julius observed how Rin drank the medicine, his eyes studying every movement. The boy seemed genuinely affected by the pressure, which was consistent with someone bearing a simple spore. And yet, better, he asked while Rin recovered his balance. Yes, thank you, Rin nodded, hoping his performance was convincing. If the prince thought he could barely handle himself at this depth, maybe he wouldn't insist on exploring further down, filling him to the brim with potions. The vein is impressive. It's rare to have them at this low depth. Julius approached to examine the crystals. Is this what you were looking for that day? Something like that, Rin responded vaguely, his mushrooms pulsing while searching for the mantis core. The dangling core should be here, oscillating right where he had left it, but disappeared, he thought with a touch of sadness. At least he still had the hydra egg as backup. Interesting location, Julius commented while descending to examine the geyser more closely. You were right. It's not particularly inaccessible. Though with recent problems, it's not worth the effort to come here to create more random eggs for the kingdom. Rin completed the thought. His mushrooms pulsed while considering something. Is that how you make the random colored eggs? Using the veins? Julius stopped mid-inspection. He turned slowly toward Rin, a smile forming on his lips. You know, I really should kill you for asking such perceptive questions. Julius observed the boy. His knowledge was too precise to be coincidence, too specific to be just reading, but it also didn't fit the profile of a spy. Perhaps it was even worse. It was as if Rin was a mystery that grew deeper with each answer. Every time I learn more, thought Julius, I understand this boy less and less. Rin tensed for a moment before noticing the gleam of amusement in the prince's eyes. I realize, Julius continued, that it's quite difficult to hide things from you. You probably already deduced most of it. He approached to examine a particular crystal formation. Yes, the kingdom has a massive mana vein. That's where we get the eggs we distribute. Ren's mushrooms pulsed with interest while absorbing this confirmation of his suspicions. The problem, Julius sighed, is that we can barely control what type of eggs form there. Most methods for obtaining specific beasts require dragon brooding or at least a platinum-ranked beast, and we don't have. He stopped, but Ren had already caught the implication. The king's platinum Qilin probably played a crucial role in producing eggs for the royal family. But that wasn't a detail that needed mentioning. Too late to hide it, though it was obvious to me. This vein is too small, Julius continued, apparently oblivious to Ren's thoughts. There's a method to revive cores using concentrated mana, but here we could barely produce 1 egg per month. Maybe 1 every 10 days if we found a creature willing to brood, but few could live at this depth. Oh, the hydra perhaps, but it's not worth the effort, right? Ren left the question hanging, so the prince wouldn't follow the conversation thread that would lead back to why the hydra had followed him up. Exactly. The gold-rank beasts that can survive here can't brood, or aren't strong enough to make the effort worthwhile. Wren's mushrooms pulsed while looking around. Anyway, Julius straightened, I'll discuss the possibilities with the director. Though small, a pure mana vein always has its uses. Wren nodded, his mind working quickly. If the kingdom had a massive vein, somewhere it must be in. Don't bother trying to find the big one we have. Julius smiled, reading his expression. The main vein is very well protected. Though, he added with a wink, I have the feeling you'd find a way to get there if you really tried. Wren's mushrooms pulsed with what might have been embarrassment or amusement. After all, the prince continued, you seem to have a special talent for finding trouble in things that are supposed to be well hidden. If you knew I already know where it is, maybe you would actually kill me, thought Ron. Chapter 114, Guide Tamer and Patender. 5. While Julius examined the vein, Wren's mushrooms pulsed, detecting something unusual. A different mana pattern emanated from a nearby crack at the edge of the bowl. Wren descended the slope as far from the pure mana geyser as possible and approached cautiously, taking advantage of the prince being distracted with his inspection at the bowl's center. The crack was narrow, barely visible in the penumbra, but there, his heart skipped a beat. 2 cores rested in the hollow. One still had the weaver's thread tied to it, his mantis core, and next to it, another core that hadn't been there before. The mushrooms pulsed with excitement, while Wren extended his hand toward the crack. If he could reach them quickly and hide them, what are you doing? Wren jumped, his hand freezing midway. Julius was right behind him, his eyes fixed on the cores in the crack. So this is it, the prince murmured, leaning to better examine the discovery. You found a way to generate eggs? Wren's initial panic mixed with resignation. Something like that, he responded carefully. I have a bug egg. Wren's mushrooms pulsed nervously. With the prince's ability to detect lies, there was no point trying to deny it. Julius's eyes momentarily gleamed while verifying the truth in those words. I see. Experimenting with basic eggs to sell in the market? Though they're not very popular. But with your family situation, I can understand a bit. The prince's assumption was convenient for Ron, but there was something more in his expression, as if he were connecting invisible dots. Then, something seemed to occur to the prince. His expression changed subtly. You know, Ron, Julius spoke slowly, his tone changing too. I wonder, were you the one who caused the incident with the hydra? The mushrooms in Wren's hair pulsed erratically while the boy tried to find a way to respond that wasn't a direct lie. Right, he said softly. That it followed you by bad luck when you came doesn't imply you're the culprit I'm looking for. Would it be who brought it here, or who took it up? The prince noticed his hesitation. No, let me rephrase that. Julius raised a hand. Did you bring the hydra here? For brooding a core or for some other reason? No, Wren responded immediately, grateful to be able to tell the absolute truth in this. The prince kept his eyes fixed on Ron for several seconds, studying every micro-expression, his Qilin illuminating the scene with its golden radiance. Interesting, he finally murmured. That last response was completely true. He approached the crack, observing the cores more carefully. I wonder what other secrets you keep about this whole incident, because I'm starting to suspect you know much more than you appear to. Wren's mushrooms pulsed with concern. You know what's most fascinating? Julius continued, his voice casual but his eyes sharp. That a student with the supposedly worst beast has managed not only to survive at these depths, but also experiment with cores and eggs. That requires knowledge not found in common books. He turned to fully face Ron. The question is, where does that knowledge come from? And what other secrets are you hiding? How much could he reveal without getting into more trouble? Take your cores. Julius smiled slightly. If you don't want to share your specific method, you don't have to. Relief flooded Ren, while he carefully collected both cores from the crack. Upon closer examination, he noticed the second one also seemed to be from a hydra. It could be useful for something different if he applied his method. Though he would need parts of the beast he wanted to get, Julius had moved to another sector of the cavern, his eyes fixed on the ground. There are traces here, murmured the prince. From the agent, probably. He turned to Ron. What do you think? Should I follow the receding abyssal corruption trail, or these footprints? Ren considered the question while his mushrooms analyzed both patterns. Not the corruption trail. He finally responded, "If I were the intruder, I'd think that's good bait. Besides," he thought to himself, "the second core must be related to the intruder. It wasn't here before, so maybe he still has something to do with the hydra egg." "You're probably right," Julius nodded. "You should return for now." "I agree," Ren responded, grateful for suggestion. The prince took out 3 more medicine vials and offered them to Ren with a wink, "for when you think of doing more interesting things." Ren took the vials, hesitating a moment before making a decision. The prince had treated him well. It seemed his suspicions toward Ren were simple protocol, so he could return some kindness. "Your Highness, there's something that might be useful for the kingdom." The mushrooms in his hair pulsed while organizing his thoughts. Deep killers don't brood at this depth, but he paused, making sure to explain correctly. If you have a part of the monster, a carcass, or any other part, you can put it surrounding the core, along with 10 days of the specific bug cultivation in this case, and Ren proceeded to show him the correct mana circulation pattern in the core. It was a complex symbol that followed the reasoning of the creature's mana circulation in life. You can revive the egg without needing its own species to brood it. Julius observed him with surprise, clearly processing the implications. But the pattern's complexity was too ridiculous to be a coincidence. When could people simply happen upon such a discovery by chance? How? Suddenly, an amused smile crossed his face. "Wolverine," he called, manifesting his massive beast, "I need you to shake yourself. And scratch a lot." The beast seemed confused for a moment, but obeyed. It began an intense session of scratching and shaking, spreading hair and mineral fragments across the ground. "Are these useful to you?" Julius asked, pointing to the remains. "I can at least sell them," Ren responded, surprised by the gesture. "Thank you. Good." The prince smiled. "Wolverine, could you take our friend up?" Before Ren could protest, Julius had lifted him and placed him on the beast's back. The mushrooms in his hair barely had time to pulse with surprise before the Wolverine moved. A minute later, Ren blinked under the light at the cave entrance, still processing what had just happened. Chapter 115, Taming Pursuit. The prince's Wolverine returned after leaving Run at the cave entrance. Julius began his descent, following the trail the mercenary had left. In the silver zone at 500 meters depth, the greater deep assassins were first to appear, where their lesser cousins were solitary predators. These hunted in pairs. Julius had to use his Qilin several times to force these creatures to reveal their presence. No wonder some explorers don't return from these depths. Their more developed bodies gleamed with metallic tone more suited to the new environment as they moved between shadows, their forms blending perfectly with the crystalline formations around them. "Impressive coordination," murmured Julius while observing them communicate through small taps on their partner's front legs. But they still maintained distance from the Qilin. Deeper, he found the domains of the superior worms. These beasts had evolved to be larger, and still created complete networks of interconnected galleries, but now wider. Natural engineers, he noted. The greater living tunnels, unlike their common versions, could improve tunnels in more complex ways, like adding spikes at certain entrances to damage assassins, turning entire cave sections into traps. Their work showed an intelligence that went beyond mere instinct. Common hydras were very rare at these levels, and if found it was almost at the end of the section, in small groups, though individually less impressive than the one that had attacked the academy. Their teamwork made them equally dangerous. Upon reaching the gold zone, the environment changed drastically. The beasts here weren't just stronger, they had fundamentally different behaviors. The assassins became more crystalline, almost transparent, their strategies shifting more to camouflage and ambush than pursuit. Their bodies seemed to bend light itself, making them nearly invisible until the moment they struck. The worms developed resistant shells. The living tunnels created mobile magical traps. Gold hydras cared for lower-rank hydras, teaching them, protecting them, showed a level of social organization that challenged the common understanding of most beasts. But it was the rock beetles that really added tension to the assassins' more obvious ambushes, their massive forms emerging from seemingly solid walls. "Fascinating," he murmured while observing one of these divergent evolutions of the living tunnels. They merged with the walls, these massive insectoids literally appearing as rock, gaining the ability to mold and generate at will. The power difference is notable, he thought while dodging an attack from an assassin that had jumped from his hiding place. His Wolverine barely managed to deflect the beast's proboscis of the same rank, while the Chelan attacked from behind. The mercenary's trail became harder to follow. The beasts here were at his level. Some would even be stronger soon when he descended further. Each step required more caution, more power. Finally, he reached the border between gold and platinum, the zone where the true abyss began. "So this is where you went," he murmured, observing how the abyssal energy trail was lost in the depths. They are using the abyss itself as refuge indeed. The mercenary had escaped him. He had chosen another path, and not the abyssal vein, but had reached the abyss anyway. But something didn't add up. Damn it! The agent's voice resonated in the vein cave. His scorpion arm glowed, faintly reflecting the geyser, while he struck the wall in frustration. It had been a risky plan. Descend to bottom, create 2 trails, and then return to the abyssal energy vein dragging a new hydra. The days needed to feed the core would be almost covered by the time he returned, and he could wait out the last ones hidden near the entrance. The silver hydra he had captured writhed weakly. It was badly hurt, but once it took mana from the geyser, it would recover and serve to brew the core. If only he could find it. Again, he roared, his mutations expanding from frustration. Again, someone took the damn core. His fingers traced the empty space where the core should be hidden. All the effort, he took the risk of reaching the abyssal vein, climbing back up to the zone that would give him a quick escape route if someone pursued him, letting his beast make a second trail while he hid from the gold rank ones. All had been in vain. The hydra shook again, as if mocking his failure. "Don't think this means you'll be saved," murmured the agent while approaching the beast. If he couldn't have the egg, at least he'd get another hydra core before returning. His claws rose, preparing to give the hydra the final blow. After extracting the hydra's core and feeding himself some meat, the mercenary decided it was no longer possible to obtain the egg. He would have to return and deliver at least a hydra core. After all, his employers seemed to have an alternative method, though it would give only a tenth of the reward. He left the vein chamber. The attack came from nowhere. The agent barely managed to dodge, his mutations reacting by instinct. A golden Chelan claw pass, grazing where his head had been a moment before. "Did you think having 2 trails would be enough?" Julius's voice resonated in the cavern. "Didn't you think your pursuer might also have 2 beasts?" The mercenary backed away, cursing internally. His strategy had been solid. Both trails would lead any pursuer toward the abyss. How'd he find a trail after he changed his access route from the abyss? Had he returned to the chamber on a hunch? The prince emerged from the shadows, his Wolverine manifesting in his body. "One trail for my Chelan," Julius smiled, "and another for my nose," the agent completed, his scorpion arm tensing. "I should have considered that an Earth tracker could catch my scent from the surface trails. I followed them both," the prince advanced casually. "But you were careless returning here. Do you care so much about this small vein? I want to know why." The agent observed the blocked exit. "Spill everything." Min practically jumped with excitement trying to feed his curiosity. "What did the prince want? Why did he take you? Did he threaten you?" Lou added, his bat opening its mouth briefly from anxiety. Rin smiled while his mushrooms pulsed softly. "Nothing so dramatic. He just wanted to check some things in the mines." "The prince? In the mines?" Min narrowed his eyes with suspicion. "Well," Rin elaborated a convenient version of events. "Apparently he had heard about my successes finding veins. He wanted to hear about my method while I guided him. And..." Lou leaned forward,